We're kicking off today with Raw as the Hood's hottest princess, Sexyy Red, kicked off the show by welcoming the fans in attendance and at home to Raw from St. Louis, Missouri. Red wasn't advertised for the show, making for a thriller surprise in front of her hometown crowd, and showed how WWE's popularity attracts stars outside of wrestling. WWE Bad Blood kicked off with a brutal and bloody Hell in a Cell match that saw CM Punk beat Drew McIntyre in a violent way to kick off the Premium Live event in Atlanta. The match was so violent that Ryback criticized Punk for being reckless in the match, as Punk did split McIntyre open with a toolbox, resulting in the Scotsman needing 16 staples. WWE's profanity-filled video of McIntyre would later be made private, and with that in mind, CM Punk opened this week's Raw, but didn't make it all the way to the ring. Punk said it was great to be in St. Louis even if he wasn't in the best condition, and admitted that he wouldn't be able to step in the ring due to the pain he's in. He added, "It hurts to smile, but I had to come here and see you. I'm alive, but it doesn't feel like it. I'm a winner, but it doesn't feel like I won." Punk then reflected on the ending of the Hell in a Cell match, sharing that it left him with many unanswered questions, and added he's more battered now than ever before. Punk went on to say that he's not sure what's next for him, and this promo comes after Punk collapsed while trying to head to the back after last weekend's Hell in a Cell match. Thankfully, Punk collapsing was a work, as reported by Sean Ross Sapp on the Fightful Select Q&A podcast, and was not a sign of a legit injury. On Raw, Punk took a moment to thank his loyal fans, his WWE peers, and even his critics, who he credited helping turn hate into motivation, and motivation ultimately into cash. Finally, CM Punk announced that he was heading home to his wife, saying he had a lot of flowers to buy, and expressed his gratitude again before saying he didn't know when he'd be back. It was at this moment that Seth Rollins' music hit, and he told Punk to get well soon, only so Rollins can retire him for good, in a tease of their long-awaited match. In the ring, Rollins warned that if Bronson Reed wants to be famous, he'll give the powerhouse his 15 minutes and issued a challenge for a match that didn't happen. Instead, Jey Uso interrupted things as he made his way to the ring for the show's first match, ending Rollins' segment in an interesting way, with Seth clearly annoyed. The segment gave a not-so-subtle reminder that Punk vs. Rollins is the plan, but a heel turn for the latter isn't out of the question given his warning to Punk and reaction to Jey. Perhaps Rollins is fed up with the changes that have occurred in WWE since WrestleMania and ready to lash out against them with a heel turn. After all, Triple H confirmed in the WrestleMania 40 Behind the Curtains doc that Punk vs. Rollins was the original WrestleMania 40 Night 1 headliner before plans had to change. That could still be the case next year in Las Vegas, assuming that The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and Roman Reigns are in the same match and only take up one main event. Either way, fans will have to wait and see if Punk returns for another match before the end of 2024, or if it'll be next year when we see him back in the ring. Do you like Triple H and Creative's long-term booking? Do you want to see Punk vs. Rollins? And do you think a match is coming between Rollins and Jey Uso? Sound off in the comments below. Xavier Woods once again failed to win singles gold as he lost to Intercontinental Champion Jey Uso's super kick splash combo in a match that was shorter than expected. Despite this, the two showed enough of the New Day Uso chemistry that this is a solid entry in their legendary rivalry, and post-match, Woods refused a sign of respect from Uso. Woods encouraged Kofi Kingston to walk out with him, and it was then that Jey was floored by a spear from Braun Breaker, who also leveled Kingston when he tried to help the champ. Woods watched from the floor as Breaker laid him out too, but Braun would deliver another spear to both New Day members before a final one to Jey, before standing tall. This attack comes a week after Braun showed respect to Jey and teased challenging Gunther, and going back to being a heel felt like a creative about face for reasons that are not yet clear. Are you interested in a Jey-Braun Breaker rematch? Will Breaker regain the title, especially since it feels like he can't afford another loss? Share your thoughts in the comments. After WWE Bad Blood went off the air, Cody Rhodes was attacked outside his tour bus by Kevin Owens, the culmination of weeks of tensions between the two. According to Fightful Select, Rhodes was a little roughed up after the spot, and while it's unclear if he'll miss any ring time, he's still advertised for Friday's SmackDown. WWE officials were said to be very happy with how the brawl came off, despite Cody being a little hurt, as the angle drew a strong buzz on social media and came across as very spontaneous. That was internally appreciated, but at this time, WWE hasn't confirmed when a match between the two, their third on TV overall, will take place. Rhodes defeated Owens via countout on Raw in April 2022 and retained the WWE title at Bash in Berlin on August 31st. And now, another match seems more likely than ever before. Are you excited about Owens vs. Rhodes 3 or not? And should Kevin Owens go over and win the title given his previous losses? Share your thoughts in the comments. Cody Rhodes made a surprise appearance on this week's Raw, and when asked about Owens by Kathy Kelly, said he'd deal with that matter on SmackDown. Rhodes was at Raw to see what it would take to become the Crown Jewel Men's Champion, which will be decided when WWE and World Champions battle on November 2nd. Following this, Rhodes ran into Sami Zayn, who vowed to defeat Gunther and face Rhodes at Crown Jewel, and Cody said that he wanted Sami to win and face him in Riyadh. Rhodes wore a bandage strap on his nose, a nod to the beating he took both during and after Bad Blood, but no injury would have kept him from scouting the Crown Jewel competition. In the main event of Raw, Zayn challenged Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship, which came after Gunther finally relented after weeks of turning down Sami's challenge. The two headlined the first 2-hour Raw since 2012 with a back-and-forth affair, but that changed when Zayn hit a haluva kick on the outside. Realizing he couldn't win there, Sami eventually got the champion in the ring where he hit another haluva kick, but the third was countered with a clothesline from the champ. From there, the story was of Sami's resilience as he kicked out of the pinfall after the clothesline and kicked out at 1 after one of Gunther's signature power bombs. Sami kept his arm in the air while trapped in a sleeper hold and was inches away from a rope break before Gunther dragged him back into a grapevine position. Even then, Zayn never tapped, instead passing out in the champion's grip, and this win means Gunther will face Rhodes for the men's Crown Jewel title in Saudi Arabia next month. After the match, Rhodes' music hit and he came out to stare down his counterpart as Raw went off the air with a huge tease of what's to come. This was a crushing loss for Zayn, and after Raw went off the air, Zayn could be seen being helped to the back by WWE personnel. Are you disappointed that Sami didn't win the gold? Were you expecting Goldberg to interfere given what transpired between the WCW legend and Gunther at Bad Blood? Goldberg didn't get involved in Gunther's match last night, but could that be different when the Austrian faces Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel? Share your thoughts in the comments. Or from Raw, as the Wyatt Six has seemingly found its next target, and that person is none other than two-time former WWE champion, The Miz. In a backstage segment with Karrion Kross, The Miz explained his heel turn, but as he spoke, cryptic images glitched onto the screen, including the Pluto symbol and the bird. The text, "There you are," was also visible, a phrase the group tweeted before Raw, and if The Miz and Karrion Kross are allies, this could see the Wyatt Six battle the Final Testament. After dealing with Bray Wyatt and Dexter Lumis in the past, The Miz now has another creepy feud awaiting him in the near future. The Miz's heel turn came after Karrion Kross played devil's advocate, and after successfully turning the A-lister against R-Truth, Kross has his eyes on his next target. During this segment, R-Truth was his usual fun-loving comedic self, but Kross suggested that this is why nobody is taking you seriously anymore. Kross even said that Truth needs to fix things or forever be remembered as a comedic goofball by the fans, planting the seeds of an attempt to turn Truth heel as well. This segment also saw The Miz made clear he did mean to turn on Truth, putting to rest Truth's belief after last week's turn that the attack was just an unfortunate accident by his friend. The segment culminated in a match, Truth vs. Miz, being set for next week, and we're sure this is a match that Karrion Kross and the Final Testament will be watching very closely. There was some other glitches on this week's Raw, though they don't appear to have come from the Wyatt Six, but simply just issues that plagued the 2-hour edition of Raw. When Cody Rhodes was seen making his entrance backstage, the screen went wrong and only his nameplate was visible on screen in an odd moment for the show. That doesn't appear on the surface to have been a Wyatt Six glitch, but we can't say for certain, and during Kross's segment with The Miz, fans said the group's glitch made another tease. If you pause at the right time, the group's symbol appears, but some argued that this was a pink circle and not a red one, and tried to decipher what this meant. However, it appears that this was just a legitimate technical issue, though as always with the Wyatt Six, one cannot say for sure what is real and what isn't. There was another PFR tease on this week's Raw, but with next week's show being taped last night due to WWE touring Europe next week, we have news of plans, and this is your official spoiler warning. During a tag title tournament contenders match on next week's Raw, Eric and Ivar will make their return to take on Alpha Academy and will be known as the War Raiders going forward. Both men have been out of action with injuries, and fans can look forward to the Vikings being back and using the name they used during their time in NXT. Are you excited that Eric and Ivar are the War Raiders again? Or would you prefer for them to stick as the Viking Raiders, or maybe their pre-WWE name of War Machine? Sound off down below. At Bad Blood, Rhea Ripley defeated Women's World Champion Liv Morgan by DQ and Raquel Rodriguez interfered, meaning that Morgan kept the gold in Atlanta, Georgia. Rodriguez and Morgan enjoyed 2 brief reigns as Women's Tag Champions and didn't end their time teaming on bad terms, as it was instead Morgan's injury that forced them to split up. In 2024, Morgan has risen to the top of Raw's women's division, while Rodriguez has been dealing with medical issues, but now she's back and aligned with her former tag team partner. On Raw, Morgan, Dominic Mysterio, and Raquel Rodriguez arrived, and Jackie Redmond questioned whether Raquel is now part of the Judgment Day. Liv didn't allow Redmond to talk to Raquel and made it clear that she's moving on from Rhea Ripley and instead is focusing on her Crown Jewel title match with Nia JAX next month. Things are certainly heating up in the women's division on Raw, and just because Morgan retained the title, it doesn't mean that Rhea Ripley is done with her. The Eradicator was featured in a pre-taped segment where she expressed her feelings towards Morgan and stating that the Women's World Champion only delayed the inevitable. It's clear that the Morgan-Ripley saga is far from over, and where do you see this going? Could Rhea perhaps get vengeance by costing Liv in the Crown Jewel title match? If so, it could anger Morgan to the point of putting her title on the line again against Ripley, and what do you think of this idea? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section. As next week's Raw was taped last night, Rhea Ripley competed in a match that'll air next week, but Nia JAX interfered and caused a DQ. Ever since SummerSlam, Ripley has been trying to get revenge on Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan, but to no avail, as was the case at Bad Blood thanks to Raquel Rodriguez. Ahead of next week's tour, which will see several top names outside the US, Ripley's taped segment began with her addressing the crowd before Tiffany Stratton interrupted. Miss Money in the Bank had a message from Nia JAX telling Ripley to stay out of her way, and things went from bad to worse as Morgan and Rodriguez arrived and laid both women out. This set up a tag match pitting Ripley and Stratton against Morgan and Raquel, but the match failed to produce a clean winner as Nia JAX interfered and attacked Morgan. JAX then tried to convince Stratton to cash in Money in the Bank on Liv, but Dominic Mysterio saved her as things are heating up ahead of Nia vs. Liv at WWE Crown Jewel. Many fans suspect that Crown Jewel is where Tiffany will finally cash in on Nia and become WWE Women's Champion, and do you see this happening? Sound off in the comments. In 2022, Stephanie McMahon took a leave of absence from WWE but promptly returned when her father Vince McMahon stepped down due to the investigation against him. When the elder McMahon forced his way back into WWE as executive chairman of the board in January 2023, Stephanie quickly resigned from the board of directors. When Vince stepped down as executive chairman of TKO in 2024, Stephanie returned to our screens at WrestleMania 40 and also appeared during this year's draft and at SummerSlam. Speaking on his Writing with Vince Russo show, Vince Russo discussed Stephanie and alleged that despite stepping down, she has a backstage role with WWE behind the scenes. Russo claimed that he heard through the grapevine that McMahon is very active in WWE again, but the company is keeping it quiet. He said, "I'm hearing through the grapevine somebody is very active behind the scenes at WWE and is being kept very, very hush-hush. I'm hearing Stephanie is back in the fold big time. This is what I'm hearing. She's back in the fold big time and they're trying to keep it quiet." It's worth noting that Russo provided no evidence behind this claim, and with no legitimacy to speak of, fans will have to take what he has claimed with a grain of salt. It'd be interesting to see whether Stephanie McMahon herself responds to such rumors, as after all, there's no shortage of fans who want to see McMahon back in some capacity. Sheamus and Pete Dunne wrote the latest, perhaps last, chapter in their rivalry on Monday in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, which saw plenty of Irish props. A bar, whiskey barrels, a shillelagh, and a cricket bat ensured that this was a hard-hitting match that rolled through a commercial break, giving both men plenty of time. Sheamus delivered a white noise off a stack of whiskey barrels and threw 2 tables on the floor, but that wasn't enough to keep Dunne down, who used zip ties to trap Sheamus's arms behind his back. A running knee to the face stunned the former world champion, but Sheamus recovered, delivered the brogue kick, and scored the win. This was a fun match, but there's a real question as to why Dunne didn't go over, as WWE has plenty of strong faces, but heels like Dunne and the Judgment Day have seen a lot of losses. These recent losses have cost both parties credibility, and that trend needs to course correct before there are too many quality baby faces and no one for them to work with. At Bad Blood, Finn Balor lost to Damian Priest in their first singles match since joining forces back in 2022, raising questions as to what's next for the tag team champion. According to a report by Corey Hayes of PWN, the plan is for Balor to deal with Priest by bringing back his Demon King alter ego, a side of Finn we haven't seen in over a year. Balor last became the Demon King for WrestleMania 39 when he faced Edge in a Hell in a Cell match, but he'd come up short against the Rated R Superstar on the night. In a backstage video at Bad Blood, Balor vowed that his issues with Priest aren't over, with Carlito ending things saying that this matter isn't over by a long shot. Balor's demon persona shows a much different side to the Irish superstar, and are you interested in the persona's return? Let us know down in the comments. This week's Raw saw a surprise appearance by Ethan Page, who was angry about CM Punk hitting him with a GTS after his NXT title loss to Trick Williams last week. Page confronted Adam Pearce, asking how Punk was made the guest referee for the match in the first place, but Pearce said that decision came from Ava. The NXT GM was present for the segment, but pointed out that she was off the clock, and we'll have to see if a Page-Punk match happens once Punk returns from his break. More from Crown Jewel now as WWE has revealed the official poster for the show, which shows the Crown Jewel title matches of Cody Rhodes and Gunther, and Liv Morgan versus Nia JAX. It's worth mentioning that WWE did release an alternative poster with Sami Zayn instead of Gunther, which they showed before Zayn's title match with the Austrian on Raw. This means that while Gunther vs. Cody and Nia vs. Liv are the matches on the poster, things may still change, and we'll have to see who faces whom next month in Riyadh. In 10-women tag team action, Natalya, Kaden Carter, Katana Chance, Zelina Vega, and Lyra Valkyria battled Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville, Isla Dawn, and Alba Fire. This was an action-packed, albeit short match that saw the faces earn a measure of revenge as Lyra Valkyria downed Sonya Deville and got the win for her team. The 2-hour format is much welcomed, but it did mean that there's talent who will see their roles reduced or time for matches cut, and this match felt like one of these examples. Competitors were put together with less time to work, resulting in a match with a collection of spots but no real flow or story advancement, and hopefully this is the exception and not the rule. Now, Bad Blood 2024 went off the air with the return of The Rock, shocking the fans in attendance, but those behind the scenes were also taken aback. Sean Ross Sapp reports that WWE Creative didn't receive much advance notice about his involvement and were kept in the dark for the most part. What do you believe is the long-term plan for The Rock? Is Roman Reigns his next opponent or Cody Rhodes? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. If you follow Rikishi or his Off the Top podcast, you'll know that he can get very passionate about his sons, which leads him to often criticizing WWE if he feels they aren't using them very well. On the latest episode of his podcast, Rikishi gave another criticism of WWE, saying he believes Jay's IC title win should have come at a premium live event. Despite that, Rikishi said he thought the match was absolutely amazing, and recalled his reaction to his son's first singles title win, as well as his past comments. He said, "It's emotional. All I was saying months ago when I was talking about giving Jay an opportunity, I kinda got a lot of heat over it from the fans to let him grow. I've always done that. All a father will always do, no matter who tells him what, where, and when, you're gonna always give your kids advice. Whether they take it or not, or whether the fans agree or not, that's what a father does. You just want the best, and you want your kids to have a fair opportunity, and that's it." Rikishi expressed immense pride in witnessing Jay realize his championship dream, and explained that he was brought to tears, not out of sadness, but from pride of Jay's hard work and sacrifice. Rikishi acknowledged the toll wrestling has taken on Jay's body, reflecting on the unknown extent of his injuries and how long he can sustain this demanding pace. The Hall of Famer concluded by saying he felt a deep connection to Jay's success and even danced along with him as he celebrated on the stage, showing the joy he felt in seeing his son thrive. As for how long Jay will remain Intercontinental Champion, that remains to be seen, but Rikishi's pride in his son can't be denied. As previously reported, AEW's Killswitch collapsed at home on Friday, September 27th, and was rushed to the hospital by his fiancée, where doctors found that his blood oxygen levels were low. His levels had plummeted below 80%, and he was diagnosed with pneumonia in both lungs, and it was said he was only days away from suffering permanent lung damage. In an update from Sean Ross Sapp on Fightful Select's Q&A podcast, Killswitch has since returned home but remains on oxygen. He reports, "He's on oxygen, he's back home, was told to expect recovery over a month. His in-ring return remains unclear, although the doctors he has spoken to say he should be able to return to the ring." Killswitch last competed in the Casino Gauntlet at AEW All In 2024, and fans are hopeful he'll make a full recovery and return soon. And until then, we at Slat Rock Wrestling extend our best wishes to him for a speedy and full recovery. And we're ending today with Raw's move to Netflix in January of next year, as expectations are high for the Red brand on the streaming juggernaut. Fightful Select reports that WWE is planning a longer gap between PLEs, with the Royal Rumble coming on February 1st, but January will have a major event of its own. One experienced WWE employee said that Raw's Netflix debut is likely to be one of the biggest episodes of Raw in history from the standpoint of buzz. They added that the show's quality will be akin to a PLE, so while we won't get an official event in January, fans won't be missing out. Sources within WWE reportedly view the Netflix move as a crucial step in expanding the brand's popularity, and while there's indication of a major lineup, including SmackDown stars at the debut, this hasn't been finalized. Raw's launch on Netflix is expected to be at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, and with John Cena already confirmed, expect a massive show to kick off a new era of WWE programming.